Okay, ready? As I recall it, we are on the fifth line from the bottom. That begins with the word Shenisrachik. So the Rebbe is now explaining what the experience of tshuva is. And he contrasts this to the experience of Re'usa de Liba. In Re'usa de Liba, we can more readily understand You ready? In Re'usa de Liba, we can more readily understand the union that this is a soirus, something that touches the etzem hanefesh, because Re'usa de Liba is an effect where he senses the union of Elokus, the reimus of Elokus, and the nefesh naturally responds to that, because this is in fact what the nefesh wants. But in tshuva we say he does not have what we call a gilui elokus, a sense of elokus. He's incapable of having a sense of elokus because he has strayed very far. And therefore, what is in fact the meaning when we say that tshuva also touches the etzem hanefesh? It is only in the respect that in a very general way, without the experience of Elokus, in a very general way, he recognizes the distance, how far he went from Elokus. I want to discuss this Indian a little bit more. What is meant when we say that in the nefesh he feels elokus, he feels in himself hamufla, or he feels that he is distant? In what way is he distant? What is he distant from? We're saying that this is in fact a conscious recognition. He's distant. If it's a conscious recognition, he must be recognizing that he's distant from something. What is he distant from? And therefore, I want to discuss briefly what we mean when we say elokus. Everyone observes the world. Even Havdil An animal also can observe the world. An animal too can recognize that which is negative, that which is dangerous for it, that which is harmful. It runs away from fire. And that which it's drawn to. World is a real existence. Elokus is a real existence. What is the difference? World is an existence that is basically thrust upon us. I see it. I cannot deny it's there. If I walk into a ditch, I will fall and hurt myself. The presence of the ditch is totally unnecessary. I don't recognize at all its purpose and why it's there. It could not have been there. And the world would have been just as well for it, and maybe even better. But I have to recognize and accept the facts of the situation. And therefore, I accept the presence of the world because I must. Not because I personally recognize its justification for it being. I don't personally relate to it. I submit to it. Because if I deny it, I'm being a fool and I'll be hurt. Elokus, as the Rambam explains, very basic, even let us, from the perspective of a Nigla dictator, we can only speak of Elokus in contrast to world, because we cannot speak of Elokus directly. But what is its contrast to world? The Rambam says, Elokus is a mechuyav hametzius. Elokus is mitziyusei me'atzmusei. He says it in that order, mitziyusei me'atzmusei, which means mechuyav hametzius. What does this mean? And what does this mean to us? How do we relate to it? Why is the nefesh jumping when it senses Elokus? Mechuyav HaMetzius clearly contrasts with our description of world. World is not a Mechuyav HaMetzius. It does not have to be. This is why there's a prevailing philosophy in the world today that the world is altogether an accident, because they don't see any basic truth in it.
So how the world is true existence?
Sorry?
You said before the world is a true existence.
It's a true existence from our perception as we see it. So here's where it contrasts. World we perceive is there, but it's an accident. Meaning, it just happens to be there. That we accept it because it's there. Elokus is mechuyav hametzius. Mechuyav hametzius. Everybody knows the word, the meaning of the words. Mechuyav hametzius means a must be. It's a must be. Mechuyav, it's a must be. It cannot not be. It's the must be. When we begin to perceive, begin to recognize and to understand someplace deep down in the crevices of our mind that really there is such a thing as as truth, a truth which is not accidentally there, but it is really a truth that has to be. Then we have a totally different experience in life. It is something which is inherently meaningful, inherently valuable, inherently true. This Indian that we say, that Elokus is Mechuyev HaMetzius, we have to understand that all our definitions that are as applied to Elokus, and we said before, we have no way of speaking of Elokus directly, because Elokus is the creator. The creator, the creation cannot have any perception of what the creator is, because it's completely outside of its realm. But we speak of it only in contrast of how we perceive our Metzius. And this is the contrast. We recognize that there is such an Indian that is Mechuyev HaMetzius. It's a true Metzius. When we get involved in the world, meaning we get involved in this world which we perceive as an accident, and we respond to all occurrences of the world as they are thrust upon us. I have to do this because of this, I have to go here because of here. And I get so deeply involved that I lose sense that my life is really a reality. And that life in general is really for real. I become a reaction. And my life becomes a sequence of reactions. I react to this situation, react to this situation. And I lose complete sight that life is a reality. And that there's a purpose. And that I can, so to speak, I can be proactive. There is something that I want to do because I want to do it. I lose complete sight of that. This, in simple terms, means that you are far from the true reality. Meruchok. He becomes definitely far, to the point where you can't even begin to think of it. You just sense that your life has lost its meaning, has lost its path. And Bishop Shaddad, he senses that he is very far from the truth, from Elokus. What?
Why does a person with no experience think to begin with that there is a truth?
He doesn't have to think it. His nefesh knows it. He doesn't think it. We'll talk sometime, hopefully, in a general class, explain the whole process of thought and seichel and all that. But his nefesh knows it.
So he doesn't come to a realization.
Hmm?
He doesn't come to a realization.
He when his distance, when his involvement and being buried, so to speak, in world comes so deep that it touches his nefesh, where it awakens and says, where have you taken me? Where have you gone? There is not one moment in your life that you think about yourself, or you think about that you are alive. You act like a machine. Then the nefesh begins to gnaw at him and say, where have you gone? Thus it shot that he feels extremely pained, mashin yisrachik. We find that he is distant. You have the place. It's the 5 lines from the bottom. That's more than one. What is he distant from? He's distant from Elokus, from the real truth. This is what he's going to explain now. V'yesh bozeh contains therein gam kein hergesh Elokus. There has to be, within this feeling of bitterness and pain, there has to be a hergesh Elokus, a sense of Elokus. Because if there is no hergesh Elokus, he doesn't know what he's distant from. However, it's a different level of hergesh than the hergesh that we spoke about in Reusa de Liba. Zeh ma shera umar ozve yasavai. The hergesh Elokus is only to the extent that he senses there is a truth, and he went away from it. He got buried in circumstantial reality, in the world. And he lost sense that there's such thing as an absolute right and absolute wrong. A person who not steal because he doesn't want to be caught by the cops and thrown in jail. That's his only sense of the wrong of stealing. And he thought he doesn't steal, and he does the right thing. What is his experience of life? He doesn't have a sense that there is something good and something bad. He is entirely existent in a fictitious world. In a world that was created externally. In other words, because society set up a system of courts, a system of jails, a system of police, this is why there is a system of life as well. But in and of itself, that in life there is right and wrong, there is good and bad, that life is real, he doesn't sense it at all. So when a person goes through a period of his life like this, and then he wakes up and says, life doesn't make any sense to me. Because in fact, he is not really acting out his life. He's not living his own life. He begins to feel that he has lost contact with his nefesh. He's a human being. A human being should know right from wrong. And he lost sense of life. So that's what he says. There is hergesh Elokus, but this is only to the extent that he feels the bitterness of having left Abba, of having left Hashem, having left Elokus, having gone away into a false world. Avoloi shemargish, but now that he feels oir ein soif, he has no sense of ein soif. Ha'haflo v'hoyilu. Now that he feels the haflo and the yilu, the greatness of it, you have to understand that the misholim that I give about the cops, the police, and this is only superficial misholim. We're not talking about elokus. We're talking about sechel anushi, human levels. But this illustrates the concept, because you speak of elokus, we're not ready for this yet. But here we're talking tshuva is attached, not that he's returning back, he wants to be a human being again. Tshuva means he's returning back, he wants to come to elokus. He wants to be an Eved Hashem, which is an extremely high madrig. So to feel that he wants to be an Eved Hashem because he wants to be close to Eirei Serv and Haflo v'Hoyilu, the greatness of this inyan, umizehu hispoilus nafshei. From this is what should cause his hispoilus. This is what should cause his nefesh to turn around. That's not what happens. Kiyim, only masha negeya me'oi be'oimek levovi, that it touches very much be'oimek levovi, in the very depths of his heart. Horichuk, the distance, which means he feels what he does not have. Why does he feel what he doesn't have? Because he senses what he should have, what there is to be had, and what he should be having, what the truth is. And therefore, mizeh nase hahispolus. This creates a hispolus to the extent, a hispolus which we said before, that this is a hispolus of the nefesh itself, of the etzem nefesh. In other words, when you say hispolus in etzem nefesh, means that his very life pains him. It's not that he wants to be a better person. His very life pains him. He questions his very life. That's meant he spoils his mamas when that's one nefesh, because he is missing the very essence of his life. So therefore he explained one point, that even though in tshuva there is also present a hergish of a lakus, but it's not the same kind of hergish as it is in Reusa de Liba. Because it does not really appreciate and recognize what a lakus is. But he knows that he is very distant. He knows that he doesn't have what he must have. He doesn't have. He is not there where he should be. Then there's another point. V'yesh bozeh gamkin ha'hamshoch. The second aspect, the second quality inherent in Reusa de Liba. In Reusa de Liba, there are two qualities. There is the inyan that he recognizes a lakus, and that he is drawn to it. So he says, the second inyan that there is a hamshoch, that he is the tzion zich, that he is drawn, rotzu lelakus, that he is drawn and he is running, so to speak, he is being compelled to go to a lakus, is also present in Shuva too.
What was the first thing? Wasn't the same thing as the Shabbat?
No. The Hamshach towards godliness, this is already after the Hispoilus. In other words, he recognizes the kiruv, the aflo, or yilui.
Isn't that in itself?
No, the recognition of the aflo or yilui brings about a rotzo. And this is where he wants to be. He wants to be nichlal in Elokus. But in Shuva we would think, since he does not know what Elokus is, he cannot be drawn. He's not going anyplace. He doesn't know where he's going. He only feels his bitterness. He says no. That even there is also a rotzul Elokus. Avol, but again we have to understand the difference. In Yonoi, the inner meaning of this rotzul in Shuva, Einoi inyan hakiruv. It's not the inyan hakiruv. It's not the thirst and the desire to be close. The hainu, which would mean sheyiya bozeh hamavukosh lehikol. That the mavukosh, what is he seeking to accomplish? Why marutza? He's seeking to accomplish lehikol, to be one with Elokus. In order to seek that and have the mavukosh that he should be one with Elokus lehikol, that can only be if he senses what Elokus is, and he wants to be nichlal in the scene. In Shuva there cannot be such thing because he doesn't sense what it is. And therefore the Rotzu in Shuva is not the inyan of Kiruv, that he wants to be close. What then is it? Here we have to be careful with words, because words have to be used very carefully. The inyan what they said before, I'm going to call your attention in a minute to the different ways that he expresses two things. Kiyin, rather, masha roitze liyos mekurov le'elokus. And he wants to be mekurov le'elokus, wants to be close. How is this, what is this different than what we said before? Eino yin hakiruv. What is it different than what we said before? Eino yin hakiruv. Inyan hakiruv. Sometimes we will bring out the definitions of certain very common expressions in Hasidus that have very subtle meanings, such as inyan or bechina. It's used all over in Hasidus, and it seems as if it's used like just an assist to fill in the gaps. But they are very meaningful words, and they're used very, very selectively, even though it's used all over. But here we could see a little difference, by the way. By Tshuva he says, Roitz Elias Mukurav Le'elokus. Whereas when he says what it is not the Inyan Hakiruv, which means he's not seeking the properties of Kiruv. He is seeking that he shouldn't be distant, that he should be close, not the properties of Kiruv.
Sorry, can you say that one more time? What's the significance of the word Inyan?
No, I didn't explain the Inyan yet. I promise me soon I will. But I just want to show you how the difference, how he expresses over here, and that has the whole difference. Inyan hakiruv, or roiteli is mekuruv. Lelakus. When you say roiteli is mekuruv lelakus, you're talking about yourself. Something that I want to have to be. Where do I want to be? I want to be in this place. Inyan hakiruv means I want this experience. It's a different message. It's not talking about where I should be, which means essentially I am who I am. But I want to be in this place instead of being in this place. Whereas when you say Inyan hakiruv, it's not a question of changing my place. It's a question of what kind of experience, or what am I looking for? There's a bocher who comes to yeshiva because he wants to learn. There's a bocher who comes to yeshiva because he doesn't want to be outside of the yeshiva. When you look, it seems he came to yeshiva, he's here in this place. But is he looking to absorb, he's coming here because of what the yeshiva provides him, or because he can be outside? Clearly, a bocher should seek both. He cannot be outside, but he should also seek to absorb what the yeshiva gives. That's what the inyan is. So that's what he says over here. That in tshuva is only the inyan sheroitz liyos mekurav lakus. He wants to be close, meaning that his place should not be outside of the pale. Hainu shelo yigeh b'mokim horichuk, which means that he should not be in the place or the place of distance, meaning that he is outside of a lukus, in a place that is distant. What is the place of the distance? The place of the distance is a place where the inyanim of a lukus are not recognized, and he recognizes only the the worldly presence. He doesn't want to be in that place. Mokim Arichut. Ki yim b'bchinas hakiruv. But rather he wants to be b'chinas hakiruv. B'chinas hakiruv in a state of kiruv. V'hu rak inyan hanesina v'hamsira. Practically speaking, it incorporates only the nesino mesira, that he dedicates himself shemosra moiser etzatzmei lelakus, that he dedicates himself to Elokus, ulakayim retzoyne, to fulfill his will, by dedicating himself to Elokus and to Meibeshin, that he will mekayim. So what it says in the Torah, what his rotzen is, he is automatically switching off, and he's saying, I want to be in a manner of closeness, but not that he experiences that closeness, not that he wants to be one with it. He remains what he was. Okay. V'lochein, therefore, Bereus or the Libo, in the case of Bereus or the Libo, Shesibos or who mitzad hakiruv, that is caused by the kiruv, by the fact that he is close. Ve'inyono hu gamkin inyan hakiruv, and its function is also the inyan hakiruv, which means he is close. He is close to such an extent that he wants to be completely incorporated. That's why it is it expresses itself in a very quiet manner. Because he doesn't have to break any barriers. He is there, and he wants to be completely there, completely that. Or be tshuva, but in tshuva. Being that tshuva comes specifically and exclusively from richuk, from a state of distance. This is when he begins to feel the necessity for tshuva. The necessity for tshuva comes when he senses how he is far. Lo zois he betzaiko ubekoil poshu dafke. That's why it comes out betzaiko, in a scream, noisy, because he is actually breaking away from where he is. But became poshut dafke, but it's in a kir poshut, because he does not know what he's looking for. Doesn't have any way of expressing what he wants. It's something just hurting him, and he's expressing his hurt. That's why it comes in the kir poshut.
So the kir poshut is a result of the tsar that he feels from his distance. It's a reaction to the pain of distance.
No, not exactly. The pain in tshuva, there are also two aspects. There is this feeling of the pain, and there's the resultant movement, the resultant decision to change. The pain is what causes this change, but they're not one and the same thing. So the scream is not from the pain, like one screams from pain. His scream is from his wanting, his effort to tear himself away from the place where he is. It's like when you see a dangerous situation and you feel that the danger is engulfing you. and you jump away with a scream. Why do you scream? Because you are being pushed away from it. That's what the scream is. So it's not the pain itself. It's not a reaction to the pain. It is a reaction. The scream is an expression of running away. From what? From the distance which he feels very deeply to the point of pain.
So
Let me explain a little bit. You have to learn to get into this whole concept of nefesh and so forth. If a person understands with his seichel that he is not the best that a human being can be, this is not going to cause tshuva. It's not going to cause any tzayka, any scream. When is he scream? When it goes beyond his understanding. When he actually recognizes directly. He experiences, it's like a person seeing seeing danger, and he is in a place of danger, and it's imminent, and it's actually engulfing him. Then he is screaming that this is not where he wants to be. He wants to be elsewhere. That's what the scream is about. You have to clear.
The whole question shows the cycle is the concept of tshuva. Okay?
I'm sorry?
The kind of meaning of cycle is because of the tzaddik. But the of kol pashut, let me explain that it has to do with the pneumius, because the pneumius serves to inspire the pneumius, inspire the pneumius in nefesh. The kol pashut is showing a higher
The koil poshut.
concept of cycle is tshuva, but because of the rich, kol pashut shows on what exactly, that it's on a higher level.
As I explained, that yes, it's on a higher level, but the whole inyan of tshuva, the be'ikir, is coming from the etzem nefesh. I explained that thing in the first session, that the inyan of tshuva is different than all other mitzvahs, in that tshuva is not just doing the right thing, but the Rebbe wants me to do. Tshuva means returning to Hashem himself. When does one sense thinking that he has to return to Hashem rather than correct his ways? I did the wrong thing, let me correct it. I did another wrong thing, let me correct it. A person can go on correcting without this cycle de kel poshut, without doing tshuva really. I mean, he's doing tshuva individually on a certain on this particular deed. That's not the tshuva we're talking about on Rosh Hashana. Tshuva means that his state is beyond correction, because it's not a question of having done one or another thing being wrong. It is the sense that he in total is distant from the Medrash. And therefore there is a movement of the entire nefesh, not just correcting one thing or another.
Kol pashut does not necessarily mean that you're more rochik or more philosophical. Just means that how you're aroused, how you're spoiled.
Yeah, and why are you mispoiled that way?
Because it concerns your whole being.
Right.
Touches that some.
Yeah, why?
Because you realize that you're the Rikul.
That you realize that you rochik from Hashem Himself. Not that you have a particular blemish that you have to correct. You sense the richuk from Hashem Himself. Since it's a richuk from Hashem Himself, that's why it comes out in Koyot Poshut, because there is no definition to it. It's not that I owe you $200. Let me pay it up. Something which is finite and definitive and can be contained in my mind. Yeah, I did wrong. Please forgive me. Here it is. And this is, in Hatshuva, in Rosh Hashanah means this Indian, not the correcting of specific things. Like the correcting of specific things is before Rosh Hashanah, in Chedesh Elul. Rosh Hashanah is the Indian coming back to Hashem Himself. Why? Because he feels how he has distanced himself from Hashem. This is what the Alter Rebbe explains in the Prokim Tanya that we are just now learning, is that the emes, every Avera, is a rebellion. When one begins to feel this inyan, that every Avera is a rebellion against the Meibashim, then, and he reflects on it, then he touches him in that core. Then he thinks in terms, oh, what kind of person am I? I did such and such. I better elevate myself, become a better person. That's not in Hatshuva. In Hatshuva is returning specifically to Hashem. And this is why it comes out the Tzaiton, and it comes out the Koil Poshut, because he's going to Hashem. He's not going to correct anything. Anything specific, anything definitive. ויש בתשובו גם כן שהיא בחשוי. Then he says, even further, in tshuva itself there's another madrega, which is b'chashoy. V'hu kasher negei aloi ho'inyin b'pnimius b'yoyseir. This b'chashoy, tshuva b'chashoy, is at such a level when the inyan touches him so deeply, ad she'ein b'koichoi litzok, where he's not even able to scream. He's completely shocked. He can't even scream out. In other words, a pain that a person has, for which he can complain and for which he can express, I have a pain, that's still a pain at a certain level of consciousness. But then there is an inner pain that goes even beyond that. He can't even scream out because it touches him that deeply.
Wait. You're saying that pain causes the cry. So that this pain goes so deep that he can't cry. So you just said a second ago that the pain doesn't cause the cry.
Right. No, the pain doesn't cause the cry. The pain causes the jump. And the scream is from the jump.
So the pain goes so deep that he can't
pain,
jump?
But the pain goes so deep that the jump is without expression. He is completely lost. The pain is an expression that, the psycho is an expression of, in pain there are two aspects, right? There's the pain, and I don't want the pain. I want to be where I should be. Right? There are two tnuas in the pain. The psycho, the scream, is is not from the pain itself, but from the turnaround from the pain. I don't want it. I want to go away from the pain. I want to go where I should be. So he says that there is this psycho, the koil poshut, the koil, that he can scream out, because he can still contain that pain that propels him out. But when he goes beyond it and he can't contain the pain that propels him out, then he doesn't scream. He is completely lost. The way we would explain this, more or less, I speak on the surface, in the practical terms, is like this. When one, I don't have a Gashmizik emotion for this. When one feels the pain of tshuva, and he feels it enough that he wants to move away from here, which means like this. He senses this is a dangerous place, and he wants to go where he should be. So he still senses two places, where he is and where he should be. When the pain touches him with pnimius, when it touches him with pnimius, it means like this. In tshuva itself, maybe I'll explain it this way. In tshuva itself, there are two types of reactions. One type of reaction is when he moves away from one place and goes to another. The other is where he remains in the same place because he can't move. But within the place itself, he turns around. Back. Which means that he makes a complete turn. He doesn't have to move away from here because this place, he's so much bottled that he doesn't have to move away from the place. Where he is, that's where he is about tshuva. There is about tshuva, let's say in our experience, that in order for me to change my ways, I have to move away from the place where I am. I'm ready to move away, I'm going to yeshiva. Then there is another, perhaps a deeper sense of what the truth is, that he doesn't have to move away. He can be in his place, and he turns around 180 degrees, and he's right there. He's still doing the same thing, so to speak, he's still basically in the same environment, and he's a different person. Overnight. When he moves away, he has to go away from here, he has to go elsewhere. This is like a cycle. He screams away, he jumps away. But he doesn't have to move because the whole mitzias of where he is bottle mavut. Because this Indian touched him, b'pnimius hanefesh, that he has no regard for it at all. As long as he has to jump away from it, that means what? That he still recognizes its presence, and it still draws him, and therefore he has to jump away. But it no longer draws him at all, because he's a non-entity. His whole mitzvah is turned around. Then he doesn't have to jump. He stays where he is, and he's turned around and he's a different person overnight. There is such a phenomenon. But this illustrates to us what he means over here, that ein bekoichoi litzoik he can't even scream, meaning he can't even set a distinction between where he is and the place where he should be. Because the place where he is has pained him to such an extent that he doesn't recognize it at all. He's turned around from inside out. And this is what's called tzakas halev. The heart screams, shalamaylo mitzakas hakoil, which is higher than tzakas hakoil. Tzakas hakoil means he can still express what he wants to run away from, his pain, and that he wants to run away from it. Tzakas halev means that the heart screams. If the heart screams, what happens when the heart screams? The person transforms automatically, from inside out. Doesn't have to move any place. He's transformed from inside out. V'zehu inyan shvorim truo. This is the inyan of the other koil shvorim truo. Bechinas kolo pnimo de lo yishtama. This is called in Zohar kolo pnimo, an inner voice, the lo yishtama, that cannot be heard outside. Ki yodua o mevur v'mokim acher.
Sorry. You said this part here?
Yeah. Oh, no, I'm finished the next line.
No, because I already stopped at the koicha, I thought. I'm sorry.
No, call it.
Right.
Yeah, it's okay. Nimtzo, from all of this that we discussed, we have this conclusion. We understand the shoifer hu inyan hatshuva. That shoifer is the inyan hatshuva. The whole point that the Rebbe wants to explain here is very brief, but the point that he wants to explain is that we should understand shoifer represents the inyan hatshuva. Tshuva means that it touches the pnimis hanefesh. And therefore, this touches also Lamailo, Nimis V'atzmus Ein Sof, as we mentioned. So therefore, it's a very, very unique mitzvah. How would Chachomim capable, why did Chachomim decide to eliminate the performance of this mitzvah because of Shabbos? And not because of Shabbos, because of Gzeira Derabah. As the Rambam explains, these are the words of the Rambam. That although that blowing of the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, it's a mitzvah in the Torah. And the Rambam gave us a klal that all mitzvahs in the Torah, regardless whether it's a mitzvah that we have ready explanations for, or it's a mitzvah that we have to dig for an explanation, a mitzvah that you can never find an explanation, all of them are equal in one inyan, that it's a ba'etzem gzeiras hakosuf. And Rambam explains why is it called gzeiras hakosuf? Because no matter what reasons we perceive in applying to it, this is not the exhaustive reason. This is not the end of the reason. This does not explain it exhaustively, ever. Because all mitzvahs represent Rotzon Hashem. And we can never explain Rotzon Hashem. Rotzon, by definition, is L'mayla min haseich. There's no way we can explain the Rotzon per se. So therefore it's essentially Gzeras HaKosov. However, it says, Remez yesh b'dover. Still, there is a remez contained in Kiyah Shefer. A remez means a hint. What it means, it's indicative of a certain inyan. By a certain action, you are indicating, you're pointing to something, even though you're not saying it in that many words. Kloimar, and it's as if to say, you blow the shofar, so you make noise. Uru yisheni mishinascha. Sleeping ones, wake up from your sleep. Kuli, etc., what he describes over there. V'chipshu b'ma'aseichem, look and seek, investigate, and then your deeds. V'chizru b'tshuva, and come back and return with tshuva. V'zichru b'reirachem, and remember your Creator. And the Rambam goes on and explains, Eilu hashoikim as ho'em as behavle hazman. This refers to simply to those who forget the truth, behavle hazman, because they get so deeply involved in the emptiness of the time. In other words, in the circumstantial activities. Behavle hazman. That becomes their reality. Habitu l'nafshei seichem. Look into your souls, or look out for your souls. Vehitivu darcheichem, and improve your ways. Okay. That will be it for today.
What was the meaning of
Have you shut the source?
I think the stop button?
Stop.
Yes?
Yeah.
No, below it.
Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
What was the meaning of the heavily Hazman?
What?
What is the touch of Alma?
Zera be'alma. Zera be'alma merely. Be'alma means in the world. It means merely exera.
Merely there.
Yeah?
Behevli. What does it mean, behevli?
Behavle. Hevel. You know what hevel means?
It's a breath.
Yeah. You know what? I'll explain it to Mitchum. I don't want everybody to hear it.
All right, I just want to know, like, what
Hevel. Havle Hazman means the emptiness.
Emptiness.
The thin air quality of the time.
All right.
It's not really a reality.
All right.
It appears as a reality. It's an apparition, but it's not real.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Beautiful, yeah. I'm not going to say look here.